Hi there, it's Kevin with Roguedeckbuilder.com here with the follow-up video to the top 10 wants for Born of the Gods. This is going to be the top 10 cards I don't want to see, or archetypes I don't want to see in Born of the Gods. And I'll give you the reasonings why. So I hope you enjoy this list. Of course, I am encouraging comments to this video and your own lists of what you either don't want to see or do want to see, and if you agree with these choices or not. So anyway, rounding off the top of this list, at the 10 slot is an efficient red drop. I like the fact that red is struggling with their choice. Rakdos Cackler is an auto-include. It's an amazing one drop, and it can also work for black, which is a plus for Rakdos Cackler. So that slot is 100% filled. I like red to need to either branch out to another color to find another efficient one drop, or to have to use kind of a second best card with either Acronym Crusader or Legion Loyalist or Fire Drinker Satyr. So something that's just not as good as a 1 for 2/2 with no drawback. I mean, Unleash isn't really a drawback in a red deck. When are you ever going to block? I mean, and the ability to have hybrid mana. I mean, there's just so many pluses to Rakdos Cackler. So I'd hate to see a card like Goblin Guide. I think it'd be very damaging to the format. It would put red deck wins too powerful. I mean, I guess we'd have to get a very efficient one drop removal card, which I'm going to talk about later why I think that's a bad idea for the format. So, I mean, rounding off my top, I think it's a no-brainer. I know a lot of you red deck wins want another efficient one drop, but I think you have plenty of cards to work with. Red deck wins is fine. It's fine as it is. It's consistently killing on turn 4, turn 5. You have tons and tons and tons of cards to work with, and I'm sure that you're going to get a few in the next set for 2, 3, 4 drops, and you do not need another one drop, efficient one drop. So let's hope they avoid that in Born of the Gods. On to the next one. I would hate to see an overbearing control white card. I'm liking that white seems to be more... We have Elspeth, but Elspeth you can argue is kind of like an aggressive card. She brings out tokens, and she's used to protect herself. I understand that, but at least the feel of Elspeth is she's swarming with a bunch of soldiers rallying around her. I would hate to see a very controlling card. Something like Gideon Jura. I hated this card in Standard. Baneslayer Angel. Would not like to see something like that. I don't want to see this 5-drop roadblock, to where all you white control or Esper's trying to do is roadblock you till turn 5 until they get this finisher that also acts as a defensive type card. So anything like Gideon Jura, it would just completely ruin the format. Esper's just a few cards from being unstoppable in my opinion, and a card like Gideon Jura would be the perfect fit for it. So don't want to see that. I think they have plenty of options right now. They have cards like Blood Baron Viscopa, Obsidian, Aetherling, Elspeth that kind of fit this role. They don't need a better one, and I want to avoid a card, especially a card like this. So no Gideon Jura, say no to that. This is a no-brainer. I hate 2-mana casting cost control cards. I think that either having to have some sort of drawback like Negate or Swan Song or Syncopate, I think those are all fine for the format. And if they were to reprint a card like Mana Leak or any other two like Remand, that would be... And Remand they're going to have to reprint sometime. I'm hoping it's not in this format, because Remand is what? It's approaching like... Is it over $10 now for a Remand? It's just like out of control expensive, and I understand they need to reprint it for Modern, as Modern... They're going to need to push Modern for the PTQ season. I'm sure they don't want $1,000 decks, and uncommons like Remand definitely need a reprint. But I'd hate to see it in this format. So say no to Mana Leak, Counterspell, Remand. We do not want them in Standard. I think that it would put blue tempo over the top, and it would give them a way too powerful option. Whether right now they have to kind of choose between like I said, like a Syncopate, Essence Scatter, Negate, and not this whole end-all, I counter everything Mana Leak type spell. So no Mana Leaks, absolutely don't want it. Now on to the number 6. I do not want an efficient blue drop. So Delver of Secrets, of course Delver of Secrets wouldn't work right now in the mono blue type deck. In fact, I wouldn't be against Delver of Secrets. What I don't want to see is an efficient one drop blue. They have Cloudfin Raptor and Judge's Familiar. those are meh, okay cards. Judge Familiar is very powerful in my opinion. Cloudfin Raptor is kind of like, ugh. What I do not want to see is a very powerful. Blue is not supposed to be the aggressive creature strategy, and it's really ticking me off that the Wizards of the Coast keeps going that direction. That probably one of the best aggro decks in Legacy, the best aggro deck in Legacy, is Merfolk, a blue deck. And of course, the most controlled deck, you have like High Tide, which is an incredibly controlled deck. You have all these. It's just blue is like, oh, we can do anything. And they really can nowadays. They've got Force of Will, arguably the best card in Legacy and Vintage. They've got every other card that goes along that either aggression, control, tempo, and we don't want to see that in Standard. And it is kind of sad that Standard has one of the most aggressive mono blue devotion right now. They printed Master of Waves. That kind of really made me scratch my head. I love the card Master of Waves, but I really wish it would have been in like green instead of blue. It's sad that green did not get a token generator, and maybe I should have included that on my top 10 wants for the Born of the Gods is a green token generator, because every other color got a decent token generator besides green. White has the Elspeth, or you have another 6-drop with the Evangel of Heliod that has a devotion token generator. Blue had Master of Waves, and black had the Aberrant Overlord. And yeah, so Master of Waves is just really way too many aggressive cards they've been printing in blue. Again, blue I don't think needs to be a creature-based strategy, especially if they do get an efficient little bounce spell or mana leak spell. Oh man, is blue going to be a pain to deal with. You think it's bad now? They're just missing a good 1-drop. That's all that deck is missing, and that is going to be crazy, crazy, crazy good. I like the fact that blue just kind of has to use subpar creatures for devotion. So again, Voidbane Prodigy would be the absolute card I do not want to see. Something that gives them some sort of protection counter spell on a creature, on an aggressive creature, would be absolutely horrible for the format. So say no to this. On to the next on my 5 slot is I don't want Esper, another uncounterable Mutavault or artifact, efficient artifact that they can just activate. I mean, this I could put Nephali Drownyard in this category as well. I'd hate to see a card like Creeping Tar Pit or Nephali Drownyard be printed for Esper, as again they right now Esper has to use again like Blood Baron or Obsidian or Aetherling or Elspeth, which aren't the greatest finishers. As traditionally, the finishers that have been the best in Esper type strategies have been ones you can't really interact with, which is like Creeping Tar Pit or Nephali Drownyard, that eventually they're just going to get their incremental damage. I guess you could put in the Celestial Colonnade in this category as well. I would hate to see a card in either Azorius or Dimir that is hard to interact with. It just gets in there for the incremental damage. So let's say no to Creeping Tar Pit. Think the card's cool for Modern and Commander. I don't want to see it in Standard. I think it will ruin it. On to this is number 5. Here we go. On to the 5 slot is I don't want a replacement for Azorius for one of these cards. I don't want a better 2-drop removal. I think that having to choose between these, either a sacrifice, an attacking or blocking creature, so they have to attack you or block for you to use it, or same thing, have to attack or block before you can put it on top, or destroy exiled creature 2 or less. Anything. I want them to have to choose between these kind of subpar removals. I don't want to give white or white-blue, again, Esper, another efficient 2-drop removal, because I think it will. That's what they're missing. That's what allows the early decks to kind of steamroll them. And then if they start putting these in, then you have like Mono Black Devotion that doesn't care about these cards. And so again, I'm all about. I don't like end-all cards. I don't like cards that just answer everything. I'm liking the Abrupt Decay type cards. I'm liking the, Putrefy or Hero's Downfall where they're 3 mana and not 2 mana. I'm not liking 2 mana end-all spells. So I want to avoid cards like Swords to Plowshare or Path to Exile in this format, as I do not think they're needed and would push Esper or UI Control over the top. Speaking of another deck that is just on the verge of going on over the top, is a red-green aggro strategy with Burning Emissary. I want to avoid Blitz as much as possible in the next one, so I don't want to see a crazy, crazy good 2-drop that has too much synergy with Burning Emissary. We've all been there. It's just, I don't like formats that, for a rogue strategy to work, you can't have these like incredibly polar opposites that you have to sideboard against or actually mainboard properly against. So right now what's happening is on one side we're having Esper Control, which is an incredibly control build that you have to dedicate a ton of sideboard cards or mainboard cards to defeating. And then on the polar opposite end is you have this hyper aggressive deck where you have to put a million creature removals if you want to survive till turn 4. And so if you side against Esper, you're horrible against the aggressive decks. And if you side against aggressive decks, you're horrible against control decks. I want to avoid that type of format. And right now I think it's pretty good. But again, if we print any one of these cards, it's going to put one of those archetypes over the top. A efficient red 1-drop or 2-drop for Burning Shred Emissary will put the aggressive drops back into a consistent 4th turn kill, which means then you'll have to dedicate way too much main board to defeat it. Or if you print another end-all control card for either Azorius or Esper, you're going to have to dedicate way too much cards to combating that. So I want to avoid those as much as possible. No Flint of Bore for Burning Shred Emissary or a card that is like that. If they're going to print an aggressive 2-drop, please make it in black, as black needs it, and it will not work with Burning Shred Emissary. So that is my suggestion. I hope we see that. Then on this one, this is another pet peeve of mine. I don't like hexproof decks. I don't like decks that do not interact with your opponent. Hexproof just needs one more card. That's all they need. They just need one more hexproof creature, and we're back to the hexproof decks. I do not want to see them. I hate them. I can't stand having to play cards like Celestial Flare and Innocent Bloods or Devour Fleshes. There are certain decks that just cannot interact with them, and it just makes for very boring games in my opinion. And it's a lot of these hexproof decks are so clunky. They play like a spread of enough enchantments and enough hexproof guys. And sometimes, like, I tried to play the hexproof deck in Modern, and man, oh man, sometimes it has steamrolled my opponents. And sometimes I look at an opening hand with 2 lands, 1 enchantment, and like, or even 2 enchantments and 3 creatures, and like, I can't keep this hand. That is way too many creatures. I'm gonna be too slow. Or you get a starting hand with, again, like 2 lands and all enchantments. You're like, I can't keep this hand because I have nothing to enchant with. And it's just way too luck-based. You get these like hands, these god hands that are so hard for your opponent to interact with. When you draw everything perfectly, you stay stuck at 3 lands. You draw a nice little 2 creatures and 5 enchantments. And, magical Christmas land, everything's merry, you get it, you win, and ugh. Anyway, I want to avoid those type decks, so I want to avoid cards like Invisible Stalker or especially Invisible Stalker or Solana Ledgewalker type cards. Unblockable hexproof dudes. I do not want to see them. Let's not print one in this set. All right, so then on to my number 2, and you might notice these are very similar to XX Amsterdam. We both do, again, I don't know if I made a shout out to his channel. He made this video for cards he wanted to see, cards he didn't want to see, and a lot of ours are very similar, and I agree with him wholeheartedly. We need to avoid a sweeper. I think there are plenty of sweepers with the form of Supreme Verdict, or even like Obsidian, or the Merciless Eviction. You have Anger of Gods. I think we're about the right amount of sweepers. What I don't want to see is something that's going to put a Grixis type strategy or black-red Rakdos control type strategy over the top, and a card like Pyroclasm or Black Sun Zenith or Damnation would really do that. And I'm actually thinking that Damnation might get reprinted here. It does need a reprint, but I'd like to see it more in M15 than now. And it does say a naughty word, and I think Wizards is trying to become more PR than they used to be. So I don't know if that's a reasoning why this card would not be reprinted. And plus, it feels too much like Day of Judgment. I don't know if they like black sweepers in the form of too closely to what white does. But this card is getting too incredibly expensive. Eventually, it does need, like I said, a reprint. But I don't think now is the time. It would really put Mono Black over the top. Either Mono Black Control or Esper Control. Oh man, Esper Control would be a nightmare with Supreme Verdicts and Damnations. And then you would also have, it would just be bad for the format. Like I said, Grixis, Black Red, whatnot. And one of these would be just devastating. Do not want to see them. I think that Rakdos is just on the verge of a few pieces here and there that it needs, and then it'll be fine. And I think Born of the Gods, you'll see one of those. So I don't want it to be over the top. Like I'm actually okay if this has red in it, because then that would make it be Grixis and not Esper. Because again, Esper is just right on the verge of becoming too powerful, or just had some sort of drawback, some sort of clunkiness to it, I'd be okay with that. And yeah. So anyway, my number one card that I think would absolutely ruin the format, 100% ruin the format, would take away any sort of this first turn drop a creature, would be a card like Tragic Slip or again Path to Exile. I want to avoid Tragic Slips. Like Dark Betrayal is okay because it only hits black, but other than that, we don't really have a first turn destroy a creature that has this instant speed. I'm even okay with maybe sorcery speed, but I really want to avoid a tragic slip type card. So it would really hurt any sort of, like I said, creature-based strategy. But the thing about Tragic Slip is it's too good early and too good late. It's too easy to trigger off the Morbid ability to then, kill a card. I guess it wouldn't be as horrible as I think it is. Maybe this doesn't deserve the number 1 slot, but I'm thinking that this would pigeonhole. Again, this is exactly what Esper is missing. All Esper is missing is a Tragic Slip. All Rakdos Control is missing is a early 1-drop to keep those incredibly aggressive decks at bay, and then be able to stabilize when they. I mean, think about this with even Ashiok. If you can protect Ashiok, first turn, Tragic Slip. Second turn, you kill their 2/2. And then third turn, you're able to Ashiok. And then, they've got like a 3/3 on board that then you can kill the next turn. It might just put Esper over the top. So that's my list. Again, comments are very, very encouraged here. I'd like to see your guys' ideas of what you think would ruin Standard. If you disagree with this list, feel free to comment on that as well. Of course, I'm not a professional designer of a set, but I have been around the block for a while. I've played competitive Magic, casual Magic, everything in between. And I think these, of course, I am a little bit biased. These, of course, are the cards that would probably ruin rogue strategies because they would, again, it would really put the spread between control aggro too far, and it's too hard to build rogue strategies like I said, when you have to dedicate so much mainboard / sideboard to combat a certain archetype where then you just get blown out by the opposite of that archetype. So I don't want to, I'm not a player that likes to play either hardcore aggro or hardcore control or hardcore combo. I'm a type of player that likes to synergistically blend a lot of those strategies. I'm a synergistic player, and that is when I get the most fun out of Magic, is when I'm creating synergies. So that's my list. This is Kevin with Roguedeckbuilder.com. Thanks for watching.